Ford Tempo was a poor person's car. I'm aware that my usage of the word poor is dismissive and disrespectful to the disenfranchised and downtrodden. But I am determined to demonstrate that the diminutive Tempo was defiant to not just higher prestige cars, but to the ruthlessly moneyed 1980s decade. Defiance, disrespect, uncooperative, disobedience, negation, rebellion. Ever since James Watt invented the steam engine, or you can go back to Newcomen's mine drilling pump, the Western caste system searched for ways to eliminate the lower castes, not out of any individual maliciousness, but by natural design. Mother Nature thinning the herds like an unseen Thanos. But, starting in the late 1800s, and this is just an American perspective, capitalism and economics aligned under Teddy Roosevelt's administration, and affordable consumer goods started to appear thanks to mass production. And almost immediately, advertising reacted to differentiate between our goods and, their goods. They drive a Ford. Ugh. But you drive a Duesenberg. They wear a cap. But you wear a hat. They carry an umbrella. But you carry a parasol. Granted, that created a stratified hierarchy of brands within brands. See Ford Lincoln Mercury, or Chevy Buick Cadillac, or Dodge Plymouth Chrysler. But the unintended benefit of this insulting brand caste system was that, thanks to the efficiency of the assembly line, quality control was nearly uniform across brand lines. Yes, we like to joke and say, Fords are equally shitty, no matter the hood ornament. But that also meant that problems and maintenance were predictable, and, like systemic anomalies, not beyond a measure of control. My point is, throughout most of the 20th century, domestic manufacturers didn't ignore the needy, and that included in the 1980s. They made simple, unfancy cars with no luxuries. Decent fuel economy, cheap parts, small wheels, cloth interior. You could have a radio and air conditioning if you wanted it, but this was just a car. Now, is it fun to drive? What kind of question is that? You're living paycheck to paycheck, furiously saving what's left at the end of each month, and planning for a better life. That's the key. You, in the 1980s, were planning, not hoping, not dreaming, not wishing or praying. Your shoulder was to the wagon, working and planning, because the only element over which you truly had control was you, and you will save you. If the moneyed 1980s meant anything, it meant that. Economic determinism. And manufacturers made a tool for you, the Ford Tempo. Okay, seriously, here are my driving impressions of a 1985 Ford Tempo. Ever try to race two Walmart ADA scooters? Ever try to run with your backpack full of all of your books? Ever try to get a furry to show up to a restaurant on time? Come on! The Ford Tempo accelerates like someone crossing the street who then sees that you're waiting in your car and then fake jogs to give the appearance that they're hustling, but their forward movement hasn't changed. The 2.3-liter HSC engine makes a little more noise, but the acceleration doesn't change. And sometimes the noise doesn't change at all. The tiny little car rolls and sways like a 1970s boat. But the long travel suspension is gentle compared to the slammy, bangy Fiesta suspension that Ford passes off as comfortable these days. I said HSC engine, not Ford Lima or Lima. I expected to see a Lima engine when they opened this hood, and I didn't. Interesting. The Ford Lima engine goes all the way back to the 1970s. It's an overhead cam engine, but in this Ford is a pushrod engine, what they call a Ford's high swirl combustion. This is a low emissions engine.
This is how the high swirl combustion chamber worked. Combustion chamber, piston, cylinder head, spark plug, exhaust valve, intake valve. Normally your air-fuel mixture comes in, does what it does, spark plug fires, bang, piston goes down, out the exhaust port. What Ford did is they put a little shroud here to stop the air-fuel mixture from coming in and going wherever it wanted. It forced the air to come in and tumble around, trying to fill instantly the entire combustion chamber, evenly. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the shroud was down here, forcing the air to come and tumble this way. No, wait, Brian, I'm dumb. Why would it be below? That would be in the way of the piston. Of course, it would be up top. I'm of course exaggerating it. It wasn't this big. The fluid dynamics inside a combustion chamber are very, very subtle. Other manufacturers did high swirl combustion in their own way. Some of them put a little recess up here to create a vacuum that would make the air-fuel ratio go up there, and then tumble, spark plug, bang. Did high swirl combustion chambers catch on? Not really. In the Ford high swirl combustion engine, it's still throttle body injected, which means the injector is way over here. By the time port fuel injection came along, the injectors were right about there, spraying fuel right near the injection port. And that did a much better job than throttle body injection and high swirl combustion.
The idea was to thoroughly mix the air-fuel mixture inside the combustion chamber to try to get a uniform burn, a more complete burn, and through physics, create a way to not waste any molecule of gasoline and send it out the exhaust port. Not quite burnt, thus wasting fuel. Did it work? It sort of worked. In 2025, direct injection solves that problem. And of course, turbochargers solved that problem as well. But in the 1980s, and we'll talk about this later, domestic manufacturers were still scrambling from the second oil crisis. We know all about the one in 1972, but there was another one in 1979, so this is 6 years after that. Does the engine make power? Between 80 and 100 horsepower. That's what it does.
Gosh, this is the sound that I remember cars made when I was a little kid. It was always the letter H. All the time, just computers. Okay, here you go. That's a lot of pedal travel. High swirl head. Come on. We are full throttle right now.
Yeah. Surprised we did that well with 4 people in the car.
It makes a sound similar to a mail truck. The cloth seats are in great shape. I'm not sweating into them.
Right.
Well, I'm watching the dash move a little bit as I hit bumps.
Yeah.
The entire dash. At Ford, quality is job 1 a day vitamin. Oh wow, that is a full throttle takeoff. Ding.
In 1994, I could not wait to get rid of this effing thing and buy a Jetta.
Yeah.
And the Jetta was a worse car. From a technical perspective. That
Power.
goes.
This is how you treated the tempo when you took your girlfriend.
Okay, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Up the hill. It's in second. It's locked in second. And I'm foot on the floor right now. Catching up to the Silverado. Okay, I can back off the throttle. Now the hill's gonna get steeper. Full throttle again. Silverado pulling away a little bit.
But we're accelerating.
Get to the top. We are. All right, made it to the top of the hill.
4 people and the air conditioner on.
But this is a Ford Tempo. It's sponsored by relatives who never gotten their security deposit back. And you know what? We had it all. We had cassette decks and engines that still turned over in cold weather. We had sun-faded dash plastics that smelled like a Tupperware orgy. We had car radios that picked up phantom broadcasts from the 8th dimension of Ohio. Automakers cared enough to try. And society had the buying power to let them. But what do we have now in 2025? Real fart. A bitter mouthful of remember whens. The loss of the Ford Tempo has been felt for generations. This was Ford's sad little miracle. A functional, low-cost car that got 28 miles per gallon? Yeah, I know. A C6 Corvette will get 30 if you baby it on the highway. Anyway, the Ford Tempo pointed a hairy, purposeful finger at the disenfranchised and said, hey, we got you. This front-wheel drive rental reject was built for settling. like a senior year grade point average. But now you can't even find these used. And when you do, who knows what condition you're getting. The United States used to have more Tempos than deferred dreams, and it was glorious. And not because the car was glorious, but because it was accessible in a way modern cars aren't in 2025. People used to be able to live with just enough. There was dignity in getting by, because getting by didn't have the same outcome as giving up entirely. You could drive a Ford Tempo as your only car because automakers still made low production cost, affordable cars. Put simply, we're worse off for cars like these no longer being made. And you know whose fault this is? It's not Ford's, even though they discontinued the Tempo in the mid-90s. And it wasn't consumers who were getting into SUVs in larger numbers. At the risk of sounding like a guy in a tinfoil hat with a FICO score in the low 300s, it was the US government's fault. Guess what? It was cash for clunkers again. That put an end to this genre of car. The disposable, bare minimum feats of engineering for people who still have moist towelettes from a restaurant they went to 30 years ago. People who just finished their shift at the treated lumber and empty threat factory, and they're not thinking about anything but being home and getting as much decompression time as possible before they have to go to bed, wake up, and do it all over again. They don't care about what they drive. They would rather have a car they could get for $3,000 on the used market than something with 600 horsepower and a cooler box in the center console. So here you go, the Ford Tempo. Because it's not a sin to view a car as an appliance, and it's not a bad idea to make cars for people who do. Not every car is built to be a member of the family. Ford Tempo, a fleet car with no fleet.
The way to set these things is, I'll use that one as an example. Is that already set to something you use?
It is. This one, that one is not.
This one is not.
Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, I will pick a channel. I will go to the button I want to preset. I will grab it. I will pull it out. More effort than I was expecting. Do you favor bass or do you favor treble? It's really a tone ring, not bass and treble. Wait, balance?
That's left and right.
Oh, it's a slider down there.
Yeah.
Between the only two. Oh, it does have speakers in the back.
Yeah, it does.
So you have it favoring the rear speakers.
I
No,
did.
wait, that was just, okay.
I did have it, but that's just a personal preference.
But maybe I let the automakers off the hook too easily. Cash for clunkers eliminated the used models, but why aren't any companies making a car like this now? I'm not convinced you could pay a company to make a car like this in 2025. They just don't care enough to make it because the margins don't make sense. Even if you told them, hey, this is going to be dirt cheap, we're just going to make it with whatever we have on hand, like we're making a hot dog. Put it to the market and watch people line up around the block like you just put out a sign that said free Labubus and affordable housing. But automakers are obstinate. They're dedicated to high margins in the pursuit of higher profits and addicted to the Hail Mary throw of big risks and big rewards. Making a car targeted at people with less disposable income should be common sense. And it used to be something automakers did all the time. Even the Tempo's primary competitor, the Chevy Cavalier, was something you could have classified as an affordable alternative for people who don't need bells and whistles because it was honest about what it was. Although I will say that the Chevy Cavalier still came with a Z24 option, so that thing was aspirational in some respects. The front-wheel drive Ford Tempo was a replacement for the rear-wheel drive Ford Fairmont. And the Tempo represented the company's commitment to front-wheel drive, with a chassis and powertrain derived from the Ford Escort. However, the wheelbase had 5.5 inches over the Escort and was 7 inches longer, like Pinocchio's nose after he says that Foose wheels add value. So it's interesting that the car that was slightly larger than the Escort was in fact more bare bones than the Escort. I suppose the Escort got all the attention because its smallness and lightness actually created a fun driving experience, while the heavier version of it, the Tempo, was just sort of, And on that subject, I don't think the Tempo is a car that you can spruce up. What are you really going to do with a Tempo that's going to make it more desirable to drive? I said the engine made between 80 and 100 horsepower. I think our owner said that this made 84, but it also makes 124 foot-pounds of torque. When you're seeing the point of view drive, we have 3 people in this car. It's not passing everybody, but occasionally, on rare occasions, you can pass somebody and you feel like Michael Schumacher when you do it.
I'd say I'm going to pass people, but I'm not gonna.
We were so excited when we were passing people going down to Florida. We were yelling, "You got tempoed!"
Nice.
1985 Ford Tempo. For men who complain about not being able to smoke indoors anymore. What's great is that, despite being economical in appearance and function, the Tempo really isn't patronizing at all. It didn't pretend to be more upscale than it was. Something I despise about economical cars these days, they try to appear upmarket. They did make a slightly upmarket version of the Tempo under the Mercury badge called the Topaz. And sometimes, at least in Pennsylvania, you find more Topazes on Facebook Marketplace than you find Tempos. Because Topazes, because they had this air of slight sophistication, they were often bought by widows. So you'll find Mercury Topazes at estate sales. And what makes my whole itch is that these cars were sent to the scrapyard just so banks could gorge themselves on Tahoe leases and Altimas for nursing school students. And people buy into it since they think it's what they're supposed to do, because it's what they see all the time. Old cars being thrown away. You see the influencers standing in front of their BMWs because it gets them engagement, but nobody sees that they're so deep underwater on it that James Cameron launched an expedition just to go meet them. Had it not been for cash for clunkers, there's every possibility that cars like the Ford Tempo would still be out on the road in greater numbers. And it's hard to imagine we wouldn't be better off for it, because that program not only took affordable beaters off the road, it robbed the next generation of affordable transportation. When I was in high school in the late 1990s, Ford Tempos were everywhere. They were cars for $500, if that. They were the capsules in which you built those memories, going to Rita's Italian Ice after school, piling 5 or 6 people into a Ford Tempo, laughing as the suspension rode on its bump stops all the way on Route 61, feeling the rhythmic ba-bump, 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 ba-bump as the car drove over the cement slabs, because Pennsylvania likes cement highways for some weird reason. It's the car that accepted mixtapes or cheap off-brand head units. You drive all the way with the balance shifted to one side of the car because on the other side, the paper speakers were all cracked and nasty sounding. But you didn't care. You had a car. And for all of us who grew up in places without public transportation, little cheap cars like this were our freedom, and we miss them dearly. It was exciting just to get to the party, to get to the bowling alley, to get to Dunkin' Donuts, to get to Surly Tony's Insult Pizza and Billiard Hall, to drive to that one bar that doesn't card, because your burgeoning facial hair is enough ID for them. The Ford Tempo was the rare car that told people with less money that they still had value, that they deserved to have something marketed to them, because at a basic human level, people deserve respect, no matter how much money they have. And hey, not everybody who needed a Tempo was forced to buy it by circumstance. It's great if the Tempo is the affordable option that you drive while you work on building your savings, but maybe you're happy where you are. You don't have a lot, but you're satisfied with what you do have. You put in your 60 hours at the treated lumber and court-ordered restitution yard, and you come home and watch reruns of According to Jim and conk out at 10 p.m. Well, guess what? You deserve an affordable car, too.
It didn't work.
I'm sorry that I'm screwing up your mirror. I would do this in my parents' car. Stop it, you're gonna break it. And I kind of see what they mean, because as I'm turning this, the entire door card is moving. There's nothing holding in this lever. The only thing that's holding in this lever is this.
You're right, there's no fasteners on there at all. There's a
Sound of quality.